Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into some really out there material.
Definitely. We're looking at sources describing an alleged UFO contact.
But it's more than just a sighting, right? There's this huge amount of information, supposedly given by beings from a planet called Iarga.
Exactly. So our mission today is to unpack all that, try to pull out the key ideas, and understand the world and the sort of cosmic view these visitors allegedly presented.
And the source itself is interesting. It's based on the experiences of a highly educated European industrialist.
Right. And the material really stresses that he wasn't, a UFO buff or anything like that before this all happened.
And apparently didn't go chasing publicity afterwards either.
No. And it's not just one story. It's this vast download, you could say, about a different society, really advanced tech, and a whole perspective on humanity, our place in the universe, and maybe where we're headed.
Okay, this sounds fascinating. Let's get into it. So who was this person? The source paints a picture, right? Well-educated.
Master mechanical engineer, also an architectural artist. An industrialist, apparently quite successful, living near Den Haag in a pretty wealthy area.
And the source gives him a pseudonym.
Yeah, Stefan Denaerde.
Huh.
Apparently given to him by the aliens, supposedly meaning stuff of the earth. And it mentions his size, too, quite tall, like 6'4", and substantial, 220, 230 pounds.
And it keeps coming back to this point. He wasn't looking for this. No prior interest in UFOs.
Didn't collect books, wasn't seeking attention, didn't even believe in them, according to the source.
So how did it start, the first encounter?
It starts on his boat, he's out with his family, and the compass just goes haywire. Point's completely wrong. He figures it's magnetism, but can't find the source.
And things get really strange as it gets dark.
Yeah, dramatically so. He sees this blue light, then an object in the water, and then, well, the really unnerving part, he sees a figure wading towards his boat from the object.
Wearing a suit and helmet?
A shiny suit, transparent ball around its head. And it looks exactly like someone he'd supposedly pulled from the water earlier that day under, well, very odd circumstances.
Wow. His reaction must have been
pure terror, the source says. He grabs a boat hook instinctively, and this magnetic feeling around the boat is really strong, like it's stuck.
And there were more beings?
Yes. On the object's platform, a hatch opens. Two more figures crawl out in similar suits, pulling out objects, cables.
And their movement was described as odd.
Very fast and jerky, like old silent movies. That's the description given.
So this physical encounter, was that it, or did it continue?
That's the thing. It wasn't just this one time. According to the material, the contact continued, but it changed. It wasn't spoken communication.
How then?
It became like a mechanical transmission. Information, pictures, data beamed directly into his mind from some device on their craft. Similar, the source says, to how it was done during his visit on board.
And there's that detail about NATO. That seems significant.
Right. The source includes this claim that NATO intelligence, around the same time, detected weird radio frequency signals, unusual bandwidth, near a high-security site in Den Haag.
Exactly where he was supposedly receiving these transmissions.
Precisely. And the force says NATO brought in expensive gear to find the source, but they had no idea, apparently, about the contactee. It's presented as this strange convergence.
Was he the only one they contacted?
Apparently not. The Iargans supposedly told him they'd contacted 4 other humans similarly, and they expected those others to make contact once his story got out.
Okay, so moving from the contact itself, where did they say they were from?
Iarga.
Yep, the planet Iarga. Just over 10 light years from Earth, according to the sources.
And it sounds physically very different from Earth.
Very different. Larger planet, gravity almost 3 times ours 3G. And the atmosphere is way denser, over 7 bar pressure, with more nitrogen and ammonia than we have.
That kind of environment must have shaped them physically, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
The source says it led to them being short, really compact, very developed muscles, especially legs, to cope with the gravity.
Armored skulls, too.
Yeah, armored skulls, deep-set eyes, adaptations for the pressure, and likely for the intense storms described.
Their movements were specific, too.
Darting movements interspersed with periods of rest. And a stiff walk, short steps, like they're walking on ice. That's the description.
What did they actually look like?
Quite striking, based on the text. An animal-like face, large, square pupils, long, heavy arms reaching down to their knees. Feet are broad, split at the front. Hands described as ribbed, claw-like.
With tools on a belt.
Yes, a belt with tools and some kind of drum-like object on their stomach. And head ornaments that apparently hid their faces somewhat. The overall impression given is immense physical strength.
Were the men and women different?
Yes, the women are described with smoother, finer faces, They apparently used makeup, white and purple stripes, and wore more colorful clothes, like simple cloth over silky trousers, open sandals.
And there was something about their origin, like where they evolved from.
Right, this is a really interesting bit. The source claims they evolved from an amphibious life form, something like a giant otter.
Which explains why they're good swimmers.
Exactly. It's mentioned later their affinity for water and powerful swimming ability. It connects back to this supposed origin.
What about the planet itself? Mostly water.
Mostly water, yeah. Land is spread across islands, none bigger than Australia, roughly. Dense atmosphere, heavy rains.
And the storms sound dangerous.
Very. Higher terminal velocity means things fall faster, harder. Storms could be unsurvivable for an unprotected human, the source suggests. And the light is weird, diffused by thick clouds. Vegetation is adapted to high gravity and winds. A truly alien world.
So, given this environment, how did they organize their society? The key concept seems to be efficiency.
Efficiency is everything, according to the source. The description of their society actually started, apparently, with a lecture on efficiency.
How does that play out?
It dictates planning. They aim for maximum population density, which sounds shocking, like 6,000 per square kilometer, 20 times Earth's average.
Okay.
But they don't see it as overpopulation.
Because everything is planned around it.
Right. Housing and roads take up minimal space, maybe 5%. The rest is for farming, nature preserves. They cultivate woodlands specifically for oxygen and recreation. Max food production is key.
What about getting around? Their transport system sounds advanced.
It's unbelievable, yeah. Fully automatic robot rail system. Slim torpedo-like trains, moving without friction.
How fast?
Around 400 kilometers per hour, the source claims. And the capacity is staggering, supposedly 1 million people per hour on just a 6-lane system.
Wow. And they contrast that with our planes.
Yeah, they apparently see aircraft as inefficient, antisocial, really only for the upper classes.
So they have cars?
They do, but different. Streamlined, tiny wheels, only used off-rail. On the rails, they use magnetic shoes. Interiors are described as luxurious. Visually, it's shown as a 3-level road and rail network from the air in the source material. And this efficiency focus ties into their economy.
It does. They call it the cosmic universal economic system. The goal, the source states, is to meet everyone's needs efficiently, freeing them from, quote, material tyranny.
So how does that work? Equal shares.
That's the core principle. Equal shares for everyone. The idea is to eliminate envy, greed, and stabilize the culture that way.
Which only works if everyone has access to everything.
Pretty much. The source says it's only achievable if everyone has everything they need readily available. Personal ownership, like we think of it, just isn't that important.
Which probably explains their view on advertising.
Exactly. They apparently see it as indecent propaganda, something that just pushes materialism, jealousy, greed, and harms freedom of thought.
So competition isn't driven by ads.
No, it comes from consumer choice. Based on need and quality, not slick marketing, according to their philosophy.
And quality is a big deal for them.
Huge. High-quality goods, no planned obsolescence or artificial aging. They see that as incredibly wasteful. The source implies Earth basically throws away potential prosperity through low quality and design failure.
What about work? How is that structured?
It's different. Non-creative tasks like production, maintenance, those have short work periods, maybe 3 hours a day.
And everyone does them.
Everyone, even the president, supposedly. Creative work, leadership, innovation that's done in their free time, no class system based on job type, everyone's in overalls sometimes.
What about where they live? You mentioned maximizing density.
Right, they live in these enormous glass cylinders. The source describes them as around 900 feet across, 300 feet high. Each one holds about 10,000 people, and they're arranged in formations.
And inside, what's it like?
Inside each cylinder, there's a huge central garden and recreation space.
Yeah.
Like 300 yards in diameter, tropical plants, water features, sports areas, big swimming pools. Kids play there.
The swimming pools connects back to their origins.
Exactly. The source highlights their powerful swimming, linking it to that amphibious ancestor idea.
Any other details about daily life?
Yeah, automated hygiene systems wash and dry in 3 minutes flat. Their standard house attire is just a sarong, and interactions apparently involve a lot of hugs.
How about family structure? Gender roles?
Chores are shared equally. Men and women both work about 3 hours a day outside the home. Women's work also includes child-rearing, teaching, social work. But people choose tasks they find fulfilling.
And their view on love and sex?
The source stresses they see love as creative individual expression separate from sex. They reportedly have a lower drive to reproduce and carefully manage their population.
Contrasting with Earth.
Yeah, the source frames Earth as needing a population explosion for its developmental phase, which is an interesting take.
And children gain freedom.
There's a process, yeah. When they reach sexual maturity, they're tested. If they pass, they're granted freedom, which includes voting and sexual freedom. It's framed as being deemed worthy based on their development.
And their definition of culture. It's not about tech level.
No, not at all. The source says their measure of culture is how they treat the handicapped and the weaker members of their society.
Okay, so moving beyond the practicalities of their society, the sources dive much deeper into their cosmic perspective.
Right. They apparently position humanity in a sort of transformation phase. Isolated, ignorant, but needing this phase to develop identity and talents.
And they mention these cosmic selection laws. Two are highlighted as dangerous.
What are they?
The first is about science responsibility. Basically, the danger of tech getting ahead of wisdom. Specifically mentioning the risk of self-destruction, maybe by just a few people using some kind of immaterial radiation weapon.
Scary thought. What's the second law?
It's about relationships. Unselfishness, described using the term Christian love in the source, is presented as absolutely key for a race to survive and eventually integrate into the cosmos.
Okay, but then there's this concept, the demonic element. What's that about?
This is pretty stark. The claim is humanity has this ego counterpart driving negative stuff like selfishness, greed. On Iarga, they supposedly have reincarnation selection that weeds out problematic individuals, allowing the race to improve mentally over time.
Weeds. That's a harsh term.
It is. And the source claims that on Earth, the selection process got blocked, interfered with, about 2,000 years ago.
Blocked by what or who?
Through external intervention, it says. The implication is, because of this block, our average mentality can't really improve. The weeds grow up with the corn, as the source puts it.
And that's why their economic system wouldn't work here.
That's the reason given. Because it relies on inherent unselfishness, which, according to this view, is compromised on Earth due to this block selection. So it remains utopian for us.
So unselfishness isn't just nice, it's necessary.
Crucial, yeah. For the race's survival, but also for individual happiness, achieving peace, self-acceptance, reaching real goals. It contrasts material creativity, seen as selfish, temporary, with immaterial creativity, unselfish, leading to lasting value, wisdom, even invulnerability. Then there's this final contemplation. That sounds very abstract.
It does. It's described as a group state Iargans can achieve, something impossible for Earth right now. It's like collective thought power controlling phenomena, like tapping into a universal omni-creativity field, apparently. Using this field makes it part of your personal consciousness, enabling mind over matter.
And solo contemplation.
That's described as feeling your mind expand into infinite space, entering blinding light, truth, warmth, ecstatic happiness, reaching towards total knowledge and wisdom through repetition.
And this leads to cosmic integration.
That's the term used. It's about joining a new collective godly consciousness. It binds the Iargans together through mutual love, focused on perfection, allowing the whole race to participate.
Wow, okay, what about their view on creation itself?
The source outlines a plan. Universe starts from infinite all-consciousness. The goal is love, but love needs a partner, which leads to this dynamic described as the sun versus Satan. Free choice is central. Sacred.
And Earth's history fits into this how. It's unique.
Very unique, involving extraterrestrial intervention, according to this source. It mentions Yahweh's intervention, the forming of the Jewish people through isolation and selection based on obedience.
And Maria.
Her purity is presented as a result of her environment and obedience, making her the necessary vessel for the Son. Jesus' purpose is described as mixing absolute divine talents with earthly ones, hence being a carpenter.
But his arrival was premature.
That's the claim. To block a still freely operating Satan, which he supposedly did after his real awakening during the fasting in the desert.
And Satan's power over Earth.
The source points out Jesus didn't deny it when tempted. The idea is the Son's hands were initially tied on Earth.
And the 144,000 chosen people concept fits in here too.
Yes, selection is part of the plan for acquiring talents. It acknowledges an initial inequality as necessary in this cosmic process.
So looking ahead, the source predicts a future catastrophe.
It does. A natural disaster, specifically a pole shift, but triggered by us, by humanity's collective unanimity in fear.
Triggered by fear, that's potent.
Yeah. And it's presented as necessary for Earth to complete its current cycle, making way for the next phase. but it leaves the planet uninhabitable for centuries.
Not necessarily nuclear war, then.
Not necessarily, but that's stated as a possibility.
And after this catastrophe, what does the source describe?
It's incredible stuff. Humanity moves to a new planet, transformed into a paradise. There's a marriage feast, the sun uniting with the 144,000 chosen.
And everyone else, the billions.
They undergo individuality convergence. They apparently recognize all their past lives, get purified, and become these asexual final individuals who possess all the talents they ever acquired.
A final personality.
Right, embracing all past lives and possessing the collective facts and knowledge memory of the whole of humanity, instantly knowing everything any human ever knew.
Shared instantly.
Through super communication, creating total unity.
And with this knowledge and mind over matter, they recreate old Earth.
Exactly. They recreate perfect copies of everything ever built. Buildings, cars, even war machines, slums, the lot.
But why? Why recreate the bad stuff?
The source explains it's not about bringing back destruction. It's an eternal world exhibition, a frame of reference for identity for these beings whose consciousness now spans all of history, so every original individual can see themselves and their part in it.
And it's also a home base.
Yeah, needed to receive visitors from the universe once our cosmic isolation finally ends.
Okay, beyond the grand cosmic sweep, did the sources mention more specific things? Like other UFOs?
Yes, the Iargans apparently gave a categorization, based purely on the source material, of course.
What category?
3 types. First, their own ships. Large discus shapes can materialize used to transport people before the catastrophe.
Okay.
Second, craft from Earth's own past. Egg-shaped capsules from prehistoric beings, the source calls incarnate absolute gods. Gods. And these craft time travel.
They use time transformation, the source says, via a time synchronization field, not dematerialization. These guides can travel time to study descendants, but not space. Angels are the opposite space, not time. Fascinating distinction. And the third type?
Simply craft from other universes.
The source also warns about the spirit world.
A strong warning, yeah, about deception. The lowest regions are supposedly full of lies, poltergeists, goblins, that sort of thing.
Even messages from higher levels.
Can be sheer nonsense, it warns. Be careful. And it brings up men in black.
As what? Government agents?
No, as a manifestation of an anti-power, using intimidation to silence witnesses.
Wow. And publishing this Iargan knowledge, it has consequences.
According to the source, yes. It will unblock spirit and force a clear choice for or against Christ. It claims the spirit of Satan is freed by this and will possess predestined materialists.
Predestined materialists.
People deeply materialistic who deny any meaning or life after death. That's the description.
So how does Christ's second coming fit into this?
It's described differently here. He supposedly incarnates in one of the first 144,000 chosen ones, once his hands are no longer tied, meaning his identification with humanity is complete, and Satan gets a chance too.
Yes, the source mentions Satan must have his chance, a compensation for being blocked earlier. Then the spirit of truth is unchained, bringing full truth, acting as our helper during a future 1,000-year reign.
Is this knowledge meant to be a new religion then?
No, the source clarifies it's not. It refers back to existing true religions. Its purpose is twofold. First, defense against evil, which needs a personal relationship with God.
And second,
to reduce suffering by obeying divine laws found in those existing religions. Religion, in this big cosmic picture, is personal service to God. And knowing why you obey changes things.
Right. Gaining this knowledge transforms obedience into goal consciousness of the spirit. It's not blind faith, it's understanding the purpose.
Finally, there was a specific point about the role of women.
Yes, framing the emancipation movement as predestined. Man's task, develop spirit talents. Woman's task, soul talents, love power, caring.
So women have a specific role in this spiritual defense.
Exactly. Woman is called to lead the spiritual and moral defense against evil. The source actually says she appears superior in her power to restrain and conquer universal evil.
But it's not about worldly equality.
No, it's framed as a specific, vital role in this cosmic battle, requiring self-consciousness, but also accepting a certain subordination within the grand plan described. We have certainly covered a massive amount of information here. I mean, from a physical encounter, alien tech.
All the way to cosmic history, humanity's purpose, future disasters, and these really intricate spiritual dynamics. It's a lot.
And the source material itself states its intention pretty clearly, doesn't it?
Yeah, to end humanity's supposed cosmic isolation. to plant this information about the creation plan and what it calls future external interference.
It definitely provides, a completely different framework for looking at everything.
It really does. I mean, just consider the scale of the cosmos it describes, the potential complexity of reality. What if there are laws like cosmic selection? What if these spiritual dynamics are real?
And our future, our whole story might be part of something much, much bigger and perhaps more challenging than we usually think about.
Exactly. And what does that idea of cosmic integration really imply for humanity, especially given how critical this source seems to be of where we are now? It's certainly something to chew on.